So for someone who is a city dweller, I would highly recommend attending Experience Week or visiting Earthaven in general. I used to live in New York City, and what drew me to Earthaven was recurring visions of having my hands in the soil. And I would say that even as I was in New York, I was always drawn to nature. So wherever I chose to live, it needed to be close enough to a park so that I could have lots of nature in my day to day. But there was a different experience being here, being immersed in nature and being surrounded by nature completely. First, there was just like a softening in my body, like a release. I think the city sort of hardens you up, whether it's to ward off, people's energy or just like the harshness and the concrete and the steel that's all over. And there was like a softening in my body when I arrived. So that's first. And then the second is that even though I have always considered myself as a lover of nature, I basically categorized greenery or nature by grass and trees. Like those were the two categories. But being on the tour, the nature tour with Dimitri, it's like the entire forest came alive and everything had a name or a personality and usage, right? This might be medicine or food, or that's poison ivy or auntie ivy. She's not trying to harm you. She's encouraging you to walk with awareness. So there was this education or re-education that I was getting about nature. And with that, even as my body softened, being in the forest, there's still uncertainty because almost like this question of like what might pop up, what might be there. But getting that education around nature, there was even more softening, like, oh, this is the surrounding that I'm in. This is what I'm navigating. And so all of that just helped to, I would say, bring more balance to my body, but also reconnect me to nature, reconnect me to source, right? Because we are all from nature. We are all from that source. And so heading back to New York City, I noticed that I was more in tune to the sounds of nature than I was to the traffic or the car horns or any of the busyness that's there. So I lived close to a park, would always be in the park, but would also always be annoyed by all of the noise from a highway directly beside the park. But this time it's as though my body had become more attuned to nature, so I could feel the breeze in a different way. I could almost like hear the breeze sing, and all of nature was just alive for me, which was really beautiful. And I would also consider myself as a tree hugger, but would always do it privately because I was nervous about curious eyes or critical eyes. And so I would like touch a tree but not fully hug a tree, or rest my back on a tree but not fully hug a tree. And even when I went back to New York, I wasn't fully hugging trees because, still in the city. But there was this deeper connection that I was having with the trees and with the land. There was this reverence that was there that wasn't there before. It's like going into the park was always my escape. It's how I de-stressed. It's how I felt balance in my body again. But this time around, it's like there's this communion and communication with nature, like recognizing nature as an extension of me, a part of me, as a brother or a sister. And so that was really, really beautiful. And even as I traveled a bit, I would remind myself that wherever I went, nature was always there. I was always on the earth. I was always connected. It didn't matter what city I was in. I was always with the source, with Mother Earth, with that source. And so that was beautiful as well. And then the other thing that I was noticing was as I was washing vegetables or preparing food, any food that involved vegetables and fruits, there was also this reverence, there's this entire process that occurs in order for me to get food delivered or in order for me to pick up food in the grocery aisle. Someone prepared the land, planted seeds, added compost or manure, and the sun and water, like all of these things went into it. And before being at Earthaven, I had lost the appreciation for that. So I grew up in Jamaica, grew up on a farm, saw the entire farming process, but had been in New York for so long that I had forgotten all that went into that in order for me to have food in my kitchen or on my table. So there was this like opening, almost this like filling in of the circle, so that I could feel again that I was a part of the entire oneness of life, the full circle, versus I just got groceries from the supermarket. Let me use it. So just this reverence for life and reverence for the gifts that nature provides us. And the other thing that led to curiosity, even though I don't fully know the answer yet, is wanting to know where my source of energy comes from. You know, like when I flip on the light, what does that mean? When I flush my toilet, what does that mean? Like all of these things that are a part of our day-to-day lives that we don't question, what's the impact on the earth? So I'm really, really curious about that. And I'm also curious about how do we make the impact one that is supportive for the earth and supportive for the generations to come, right? Like we want to ensure that, or this is something that I'm passionate about, I want to ensure that the mark that I leave here, it isn't something that the next generation has to clean up, but it's something that they get to build on, right? We're leaving an earth that is fertile and thriving for them versus one that they have to clean up, you know, something messy that we did because of the choices that we make. So all of that was a result of arriving here at Earthaven and following the guidance, right? Like as I was in my New York City apartment, I was feeling trapped, as though like the concrete walls were holding me and I just wanted to like bust out. And I knew that there was something else calling me, and it was so persistent that I had to explore what that was. And so if for you there's something that's calling you, whether it's this reconnection to nature, going back to the source, coming back to the land, explore that, right? Explore that and see how that might enrich your life as well. So I hope to see you at Experience Week, whether it's this year or next year, hopefully this year.